Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. How are you guys doing? Good? Yeah. So I know a lot of you have come out here to, in some way, shape, or form, despite your experience, despite your backgrounds, to become a better software engineer. And I think specifically the title of this program was How to Become Part of the Top 1% of a Software Engineer. Just to give a little bit of a background about myself in case you guys don't know who I am. I'm Sajjaad. I went to Georgia Tech. I got my bachelor's and master's in computer science there. I work as a software engineer at Splunk, which is a data logging company for those who don't know. And I recently got promoted to a mid-level position, and I regularly lead interns, junior engineers, and also I post content pretty much every day on various platforms. Now, I want to kind of start off with one question. If I could just get a couple of people to just throw out some ideas. What defines a top 1% software engineer? Any hands? Efficiency.
Grit.
Consistency.
Good at team collaboration.
Good at team collaboration. Now, these are really good general terms to be top 1% in any field. And to be honest, I think that's kind of where it lies. You see, a lot of people might throw out, oh, you need to be this good coder, or you need to be this skill. But that doesn't really exist for being a top 1% software engineer. In fact, when you apply to Google, you might need to put certain qualifications like, I know Java, I know JavaScript, I worked at this company, I did this project. But there's no set qualifications to determine a top 1% software engineer. In fact, it's all about perception. In fact, you think someone is a top 1% software engineer based off the stuff that they do and the knowledge that they spew. You think that someone's intelligent in something. It's all a perception game. And so in this sort of talk, I plan on giving you guys a couple of these tools that I've picked up to make people perceive you as a top 1% software engineer. Despite your background or experience, there are certain things that you can do to kind of accelerate it. So you guys excited? Yes? All right. Oh, I'm excited the slides are back. So first I want to start off with the mindset that you guys need to have. And it all starts off with customer obsession. Does anyone know where I got this term from? Customer obsession? Yeah, it's Amazon's #1 leadership principle. I stole it from them when I interned there. No, but it's really, really important. You see, whenever you work on anything, any part of software, whether it's even as simple as front-end engineering, you need to think of what does a customer think about it? For example, the YouTube subscribe button. Why is it red? Well, someone could be like, oh, red is a primary color. Kids recognize it, so it's very outwardly going. Another person might be like, red, that's kind of like a destructive action. Should we not actually have that there, or should we change it up to something else? Or maybe when we hit the subscribe button, what type of animations should appear so we can maximize sort of the dopamine our customers get to actually maximize their experience? You see where I'm headed with this? So it's all about shifting your work to being a business impact. A lot of people have an engineering-centric approach. I have to do this Jira ticket. I need to code this project. But how is the customer, a person who probably doesn't have any technical background or experience, supposed to understand it? In fact, the biggest challenge for a lot of people in this world, the biggest industry, is tech education. A lot of people don't understand technology, and a lot of engineers try to think in terms of just technology, in terms of just this Java function, in terms of this async function, in terms of what this can do, threads, all these different things. But it kind of just boils down to a simple thing. How are the people who are going to use this product want to use this product so they'll keep buying from us? And trust me, the more business impact you have, the more solutions you solve from the customers, the more money you'll make, and the more renowned and more kind of push up you'll get. And you will, sooner than later, become a top 1%. So next thing, communication. So we have a good mindset now when we work. Now it's going to be communication. So communication comes in many different aspects, both communications that you do as well as communications that you receive. And for me personally, it all starts with mentorship. Like I mentioned, I mentor regularly interns, junior engineers on my team, but I wasn't obviously always like that. I used to be an intern myself. I used to be kind of the entry-level junior engineer myself. And so when you join a software engineering company or a job, you need to identify mentors quickly. Talk with your manager. If you're an intern, talk with your manager and be like, hey, I have career goal X, Y, and Z. I have technical goal X, Y, and Z. Could you help me identify someone on this team who could help me out? And I'm actually really lucky in my experience. This principal engineer literally just put herself out there to help me out and regularly had scheduled like Friday calls every 2 weeks. And she's actually the one who helped me work on my documentation to get me promoted so quickly. So just, first of all, huge shout out to her. But just in general, identify your mentors. Identify people who have more experience than you, who have kind of like are in the direction that you want to get to, and work with them closely. Set up regular calls. Ask them, nudge their brain. And even if you don't have any questions particularly, just find out what they do on a general day-to-day basis. Because actually a lot of the stuff I'm going to go over in this presentation comes from that, from having proper mentors, people who've been through it. And speaking of that, coffee chats. So how many of you are interns here or already like working at a company? A couple? Yeah. How many of you guys have regular coffee chats? Good. Actually, I'm very impressed. You see, I don't know why, but ever since COVID happened, a lot of the world has gotten introverted and a lot of people are just like isolated themselves, just being behind doors. So no one actually wants to go out and talk. No one actually wants to come out to public events like this. So very impressive that you guys do coffee chats. And if you aren't doing them, do them. Just anyone on your team, like a senior engineer or even like sometimes interns, you can learn from people who are at a below level than you. Just be like, hey, how are you doing? Set up 15, 20 minutes. And you'll be surprised. People actually want to talk, Although they may not initiate, people actually do love conversations. They're good like breaking out space. And so one, you can get good work friends, which will help you out. And two, you'll actually be able to learn from them. And also another important thing is there was a recent study, or actually I don't know if it was recent, but there was a study in which the highest paid people on a particular team are not the smartest. So intellect doesn't equal money. You know what does? Well, intellect doesn't directly equal money. The people that other people like the most got paid the most. So you need people to like you. You need people to be like, hey, Yassine, you're a good guy. You should get promoted soon. It's funny, but it's true, In fact, the people who are the smartest, they typically are get paid the second most, but it's the people who people like the most that get paid the most. Speaking of which, brag sheet. And this is actually something I picked up from my mentor. But basically, when you are working on your software engineering job, you're going to go day in, day out, just doing tasks, small tickets, maybe you have a meeting with someone. I think every single day, especially if you're new, try to write down something that you accomplished. Not hello, don't write that. Write down tasks that you did. Hey, I merged this ticket. Hey, I had a conversation. Hey, I mentored Yassine and I helped him push this bug. I helped him with this issue. Then over time, as the weeks pass, as the months pass by, you'll be able to kind of recognize significant accomplishments that you did. And specifically when you're trying to get promoted and get pushed up, you need to have specific things that you can point out that you worked on. Or it'll even serve as a reminder to you. So the next time that you have a coffee chat maybe with a director or a VP who directly impact the promotion or the hiring process, they'll be like, wow, you're impressive. You did this, this, and this. Because sometimes just like you'll forget the amazing work that you did 4 months ago. I mean, I can't even remember what I ate last night, Like people, your memory is small, but you need to keep, this is just a brag sheet for you, and it'll help you and you alone throughout your career. Next up, active listening and active questions. So the first part about communication in any stream starts off with active listening. When they say, like, when you start your internship, there's, in the first couple of weeks, I like to think of it like a honeymoon phase. They say there's no bad questions, but for some reason, everyone's too shy to ask questions. And then later on, week 4, week 5 happens, and then you ask, and you're like, oh my God, that might be a dumb question. I should have asked that in week 1. Well, yeah, don't live with regrets. Ask those questions early and often. Listen to what people are saying. Take notes in your meeting. And even if it's like a highly complex meeting, be like, hey, do you mind if I record this meeting? And usually they're like, yeah, sure. Or if you're like taking notes, be like, hey, one second, I'm just going to take notes in this meeting. In fact, that'll actually be more impressive than you just being like, yeah, I understand everything. Yes, yes, yes. Like, you all know what I'm talking about, right? So be very, very active and ask those questions early and often. And when you do ask questions, and this is another thing sometimes people struggle with, how do I know when to ask questions versus research something? You know, like you're given a complex problem. Should I spend a lot of time researching it, or should I start asking questions? And I struggle with it sometimes too. One thing that has helped me out a lot is the coffee chats. You know, you start off, you meet different people, and you ask them those different questions. You see, it only becomes a problem when you bug someone constantly, the same person, for a lot of questions. But if you ask different people different things, then it's like distributed. Like you ask someone a question here, you ask someone a question here, everyone's cool. Like no one has a problem with you. And in fact, asking smart questions by listening and giving good information, giving good context, saying, hey, I tried X, Y, and Z and it didn't work, and then trying to ask a question, those are just like some tips and tricks here. All right, time management. You know, I actually really don't like this term. A lot of people ask me, hey, how do you manage your time? How do you like make like content? How do you like do your job? How do you do all this thing? And you know, I actually don't feel like I'm nudged for time. I don't like sometimes I use a calendar, sometimes I don't, but I seem to just get everything done. That's because I believe in this other term, energy management. So you need to, especially when you're starting a job, your first couple of weeks, identify when do you actually work best. Don't just work your 9-to-5 job. In fact, for some people, an hour between 7 and 8 a.m. might be worth 3 hours between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. So identify when you're most productive and communicate that with your manager, communicate that with your team. In fact, my sole strategy when I first joined my job was I would pretty much work all hours. You know, like I would like work from as soon as I woke up till as soon as I slept, just trying to like crack you know, like when you're joining a new thing, you're just trying to crack at it. Like, what's the problem? Just trying to figure out everything. Because I was struggling a little bit, and I was just trying to work, get problems done. It got so bad to the point where I used to dream in JavaScript. It was really weird. Don't get to that level. But yeah, so I would get so super obsessed. But that taught me really well of when am I actually productive. Now, at the hour after 1 p.m. after I eat my lunch, you know, the post-lunch coma, I'm not very productive. So that might be a good time to, you know, like phone someone or like have one of those coffee chats or just talk to people. Versus when so I work on the East Coast and like my team here is on the West Coast. And so like those morning hours are golden for me. No distractions, no like messages, no nothing. I'm just like hyper-focused on it. So you need to identify when you get into sort of that like flow state. And I know a lot of people, they like have what you call like, you know, like the tech bro, multiple monitors, 4 monitors screen. You have like your code, your browser, your Slack message. I hate that. I simply don't like it. I like doing one task. I don't like getting even, sometimes work notifications are distractive. So identify like where you actually truly have that flow state, because that's where you operate. You know, like you need to get into that flow such that like literally like you don't worry about the time. So as long as your energy is good, the time doesn't matter. You'll get your stuff done, hopefully in time. But yeah, just make sure you have the proper energy as you're working through it. All right, so a little more kind of tips and pieces of advice. These are a little like, I would say a little more advanced compared to the previous ones. But so another thing that separates out good software engineers is one, they have good quality estimates. So when you're designing a project, when you try to allocate them for certain sprints, do you guys know about like sprints, story tickets? Well, this isn't too much jargon, right? Okay. But basically, engineers who can actually assess a certain problem, like, hey, we want to build this browser feature. We want to build this new feature. This tab is going to have these X, Y, and Z features. If you can actually learn to allocate, okay, this is going to take these many story points with these many engineers, and this is how we're going to implement them. If you can design and plan really well, that'll make you a very top engineer. Another thing, review people's code. Even if they're random people, even if they're senior software engineers, even principal software engineers, review their code. Even if they're not even on your team, review their code. It will, first of all, get your name out there, be like, hey, this guy knows stuff. Two, it'll teach you about the product more. And the more knowledge you have, the better it is for you. And it'll just make you or three, it'll make you a better overall engineer because you'll be like, hey, that's a bad coding practice. Hey, you forgot a semicolon here. Hey, you forgot the spacing here. And yes, it could be simple as spacing, so many issues like that. Like senior software engineers actually make a lot more mistakes than what you would imagine. So they aren't like super ahead of you. You can get there, you can review their code, and you can advance up there. The third point, stabilize and switch. So this is probably one of the most essential points that I'm making right here. But whenever you join a new team, whenever you start working on a project and you work hard on it, eventually you'll get to a point where you're like, yeah, I'm chilling. This isn't hard. Like I'm working on my job. I'm like chilling. I know how to build every feature. Each sprint, I finish my stuff ahead of time. That's actually a dangerous point. Because you know what just happened? You stopped learning. Things got a little too easy for you. You will reach that point probably like a year and a half in, and that's when you need to start really thinking about your career, where you want to progress. Do you enjoy working in what you work now? Are you more of a front-end engineer that wants more back-end experience? Are you more of a back-end engineer that wants front-end experience? Or do you even like the team that you're working on? Or do you think that a sister team or a different organization can make you a little more productive? These are all sort of the thoughts that you should always be having in general, but there's going to reach a point where things get a little too comfortable and you're like, I'm cruising, I'm making good money, I'm chilling at my job. But that's actually dangerous because you aren't going to grow further than that. It's going to be a little harder. But sometimes change is good because it'll give you a new set of challenges. And in that new environment, when you've already sort of proven yourself a little bit in the old environment, that'll give you a new launching pad to go even further up. So that was about kind of like a little bit tips and advice of how to become a top 1% software engineer. I hope this helps, and I'm free to answer any questions you guys have.